In spring of 2015, within the span of a month, I had started testosterone, celebrated my 25th birthday, and publicly come out as trans. With all those milestones in quick succession, springtime has now become a season of reflection for me. As I sweep the dust from the corners of my not-quite patio in the city and weed out the dead and dormant plants from the winter to make room for new seedlings, I find myself taking stock of my life as well, considering how I've changed in the last year and new goals or adventures I want to make room for going forward. Sarah Burke, the editor-in-chief of the outlet Them, recently wrote, "There's something very queer about embracing perennial change," and I'd have to agree. Queer people, in my opinion, see the beauty and power in change. As people who've necessarily had to devote so much time to self-reflection, we don't fear change, we tend to embrace it. Despite the effort that goes into keeping a garden, the wonders of it, those first seedlings sprouting, the first blooms, never gets old to me. But sometimes I can lose sight of just how much each plant has grown. There's a pancake plant my friend gave me a cutting of on March 14th, 2020. I named her Crepe Suzette. Day by day, she's never seemed to grow too much, but when I look back at what she looked like when I brought her home at the very start of the pandemic and compare her to now, the transformation is extraordinary. Or take these carrots that grew without me noticing. I don't know if they grew at the end of the season last year or more recently. Sometimes so much can happen right in front of you. When you see it day after day, it doesn't look very different until eventually you take a step back and realize all those minuscule, barely perceptible changes combine together to create a wholly new form. Which is why, for the past 7 years, I've been taking regular photos of myself from every angle so that I can note the physical changes that have occurred while I've been on testosterone. I can definitely feel a little silly setting up a photo shoot just for myself and posing for all of these photos, and even sillier sharing the process with you now. But the photos have proven to be incredibly useful in spotting how my body has changed. Mostly from tea, yeah, but also from aging. I've even been able to keep an eye on things like moles that could be concerning that I may not have otherwise noticed. At first, I was doing these photo shoots every month, back when changes were coming fast and furious. Then it turned into an annual tradition, one which I frankly forgot to do a couple of times. But the ritual of it, and more importantly the records that it creates, make it so worth it to me. I think that will about do it. At 7 years in, there really aren't that many physical changes to report. You know, it's different for everyone, but changes really do slow down after a handful of years. That's why there aren't too many videos online of trans guys still talking about transition updates this many years in. You know, usually at this point you might get a more timeline kind of video, like I made at 5 years. But that's also part of why I wanted to make this video, because yes, if we were to look back just a year or two, there wouldn't be any big changes to report. But thanks to these photo shoots, I can look back a lot further, and that is where it gets interesting. So this was me on the first day that I started testosterone. Here is me 3 years later, and this month. I guess the beard and hair are really the most obvious changes, but hey, I wasn't really able to grow even halfway decent looking facial hair until the past year or two, so that counts. It's really been filling in more on my cheeks and slowly but surely sprouting on my chin. I don't know why my chin has been the one place that it just won't grow. I also don't know how long it could actually get because I trim it down every couple of days. I think it needs to be a bit thicker yet for me to really experiment with like a long beard and see how that would work. Waiting for facial hair to like really come in is one of those things that does actually change many years into tea and just as you age in general, like it does for a lot of cis guys. But one thing that really stood out to me looking at these old photos this year was how much my shoulders have grown. I mean, I do know that even over just like the past year, it's felt like my hips and my thighs have finally gotten a good amount of fat redistribution happening. I judge that mostly just based on how my pants have been fitting, although that might actually just be muscle loss from skipping leg day for like the whole pandemic. But overall, like my hips really have never gotten much smaller at all. What has changed is my shoulders, apparently. You know, not only are my shoulders much bigger, but they're now substantially wider than my hips. And that's one of those things that a lot of transmasculine people shoot for with transition, like whether from T alone or from weightlifting, just trying to shift focus from the hips by emphasizing broader shoulders. And I hadn't even realized the extent to which that had just kind of happened. I mean, like, I do push-ups and chin-ups most days, but I'm not a big weightlifting person or anything, so this is mostly just from T. And my scars have faded more than I realized, which is cool. I got top surgery about 6 years ago, and you know, for a while it seemed like because my chest hair had kind of concentrated along my scars, it seemed like the hair actually made the scars appear more prominent, like some trick of shading or something. So basically, I was shaving my chest sometimes, like if I was going to the beach, just to see if it actually made them less visible, which I think it paradoxically kind of did. But over the past year, I've gotten a lot more chest hair above my scars too, so I'm not really sure if I want to like shave my whole chest, because it's kind of cool seeing how much hair I can grow on my chest now, so I don't really want to get rid of it, even though it would probably grow back very quickly. Maybe one day I'll actually get pecs big enough or enough thick chest hair to mostly obscure my scars. It doesn't really bother me though. I'm pretty happy with how much they've faded, really. And while we're here, I'll also just show how much my body hair in general has exploded over the years. So here's my legs basically pre-T, and here are my legs now. Of course, like most trans guys, the place where my body hair grew the absolute most and the first place that it grew a ton was my butt, but I'm not gonna be showing you my bare backside today. You gotta go to OnlyFans for that. I'm just kidding. I do not have an OnlyFans. Oh my gosh, I'm way too much of a prude. I've never even been on OnlyFans. That is not shaming people who are. I just like, I get very embarrassed by thinking about it. Oh my god, no. I do not have an OnlyFans. My eyebrows have also successfully recovered from being overplucked during that super thin trend of the early 2000s. Now I get random hairs sprouting like halfway up my forehead. And my forehead is a lot bigger because my hairline has receded. That started pretty early on, and I was kind of freaked out for a bit because I thought I was like beginning to lose my hair properly. But I think back then, like in the early months and years of starting testosterone, that was mostly just my hair readjusting to a more masculine hairline. It has definitely gotten thinner in a more typical actually losing my hair state over the past couple of years though. Turning 30, pandemic stress, it's just happening. I did try taking finasteride via pills for a bit, and I think that worked, but it also counteracted the effects of T enough that it wasn't worth it for me. Which, by the way, is basically what it's designed to do. It is a DHT blocker. But some guys manage to save their hair from finasteride pills and still get enough consistent changes from T and no other side effects, so it works for them, but it didn't quite work for me. I, after that, tried topical minoxidil, basically like Rogaine that you just drop onto your scalp. But that has just never worked at all for me, just not been effective at all. So now I'm using a topical thing from that brand that has all the ads on the subway, and it includes 3% topical finasteride, which I think is helping. I really don't want to lose my hair. I only started having the hairstyles I wanted about 8 years ago. Like, it's not like I've had a lifetime to enjoy my hair, but I also feel so much more like me and like the man that I know I am when I am getting my full dose of tea and all of the effects that come with it, unfettered by the dampening effects of oral finasteride. So even though I think that was the most effective in terms of preventing hair loss for me, I don't quite want to go back on it at the moment. And you know, I think 7 years into transitioning, that is like the biggest thing for me. Just feeling like a man. You know, I just want to be seen as and treated as an ordinary guy, which I am, like 9 times out of 10. You know, my dysphoria is pretty dang low these days. I spend a lot more time thinking about my future and general self-development versus anything to do with transitioning. And it might have more to do with aging and the pandemic and where I'm at in my life than how far into transition I am, but, you know, I feel more and more like a boring dad. Like, a perfect weekend for me right now would be spending some time reading, probably a book on US history, getting some stuff done around the house, inevitably ending up at Home Depot to pick something up, and then sitting down to watch a football game and have a craft beer, and then maybe going to hang out with some friends in the evening, but not staying out too late. I mean, the weekends when I am actually free enough to do just that are golden. But yeah, I've definitely caught myself being like, when did you turn into your dad? You know those Progressive commercials where the insurance guy has to stop new homeowners from becoming their parents? Those commercials call me out. But man, like, I love being kind of boring. You know, being an ordinary, stereotypical, entering middle-aged guy is not a reality I always understood would be available to me. Like, do you realize the kind of gender euphoria that comes from all of your targeted ads online being for Carhartt jackets and ESPN+? It's so stupid, and I love it. I mean, did I also swap my 19th century US history books for Our Flag Means Death fanfiction this past weekend? Yes, I contain multitudes, and Taika Waititi can get it in those leather pants. Dang. But no, seriously, I'm just loving being me these days, you know, living life and leaning into becoming more self-reliant, like trying to learn a lot of new skills, from knowing how my car works and how to take care of it to baking my own bread. Again, multitudes. Now, could I have gotten to this place of contentment and explored these sides of myself without the physical changes from transitioning? I mean, could I? I don't know. Some trans and non-binary people can and do, of course, but for me, I think the physical and social dysphoria weighed on me far too heavily to be able to focus on other parts of my life or feel confident in anything that I did. I mean, it is really astounding just how much mental space dysphoria can take up, and how not feeling at home in your own skin can make it so much more difficult to do anything. Plus, there is something to be said for the mental and emotional changes that hormones can cause as well. You know, having the right proportion of hormones coursing through my body just makes every part of me feel like a well-oiled machine, just doing what it's supposed to be doing. And you know, just like when I watch my plants grow, and every new phase feels exciting and like such a huge accomplishment, most of medical transition has kind of felt the same. Like, at every phase, I've just been like, heck yeah, that was so right for me, and I feel so much better. But there were also a lot of times in there when I was frustrated, when I felt that some changes hadn't happened soon enough, and when the kind of life that I am living now still felt like a cloudy pipe dream I may never actually experience. I want to make a larger video on this someday, but I think there are some serious slumps that can come in the early years of transitioning, when you feel like you've done everything you are able to do, and changes just still aren't happening how or as fast as you thought they would. You know, I am so glad that there are so many more trans masculine people sharing their stories and their transitions online now, because for so long, and this is still kind of the case, but it is getting better, but for so long, the only examples we saw were of white, thin, able-bodied folks. You know, people who look like me, but with more muscles and better hair. And there is still a bit of a bias towards the people who post photos and videos of transition often being the ones who have had the most substantial or quickest changes, because they're probably proud and excited to share, more so than someone frustrated by certain changes not happening. And because those kinds of posts get more engagement, the algorithms reward them, and on and on and on. But what that leads to is even more frustration from people whose medical transitions seem to be taking longer, because the dominance of those fast or drastic transitions can make it start to seem like the norm. when really, transition takes time and is so different for each person, depending on genetics, body type, other medical conditions or medications you're on, age, and so much more. Yeah, I will never forget going to a camp for trans men, and after a day or two, hearing a bunch of guys talking about how amazing it felt to see so many different types of trans men and trans men's bodies, and how so many of them had been scared that they were going to be the only chubby guy there, or the shortest one there, or the one with the biggest hips, or the highest voice, or the oldest one. And then they found out that their body or experience was actually way more common than the internet would have you believe. I've met so many transmasculine people over the years who are a few months or a couple years into T, and they're disappointed and frustrated and getting into another dysphoria slump because they aren't seeing the huge gains or drastic changes that they might have seen represented by trans people online. And sometimes I'd be talking to them while like several years more on T than they are, and maybe looking like I am less years on T, certainly looking younger and nothing like the six-pack sporting Instagram models. And I'd say to them like, I don't know if this will make you feel better or worse, but like, I am 3 years ahead of you, and this is just the reality of what I've got. Yeah, I'm not personally disappointed by my changes from T at all. Like, I mean, do I wish that my hips were smaller? Of course. And part of that, not all, but part of that could be fixed if I got super dedicated to eating better and working out, but that's not really who I am. I mean, I prioritize staying healthy for my heart and general health, but I'm still much more likely to end the day with an IPA and some candy than another hour at the gym. And this is what I'm gonna look like as a result, and that's fine. You know, my voice will probably never get deeper than this. I don't know if I will ever get enough chest hair to cover my scars, or whiskers will ever actually grow on my chin, but that's okay. All of our bodies are different and are going to have different reactions to T. And all cis dudes' bodies are different too. I mean, they run the gamut so much more than social media and Hollywood and stuff would lead us to believe generally about men. You know, I've said it before, but I just really want people to have realistic expectations about what T can and can't do, or might not do. You know, I've heard from people who wanted to essentially microdose T to get like some certain changes, being startled by some major changes that happened early on for them. And meanwhile, there are other guys who would have traded anything to get those changes so early and might still be waiting on them years later. And there's a quote that is often misattributed to Treasure Island author Robert Louis Stevenson, but actually likely came from this early 20th century motivational writer named William Arthur Ward. But whoever wrote it said, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant." If you're transitioning right now, medically or otherwise, you're taking steps. Be proud of yourself for that. Know that you are planting seeds that will one day lead to the future and results that you want. But try not to judge yourself so harshly for not being there yet. Remember how far you've already come. These things take time, but that's all right. Try to enjoy the ride and not just the destination. And I guess when you are 7 years on T and there's not as much to share about yourself anymore, you also get insufferably motivational to other trans people. But if you've been here a while, you know that's just how I roll. Anyways, thanks for sticking around to the end. If you liked this video, maybe share it with someone that you think it will also resonate with. And let me know in the comments how your targeted ads online have changed since you started transitioning, or any other funny targeted ad stories. We're living in a cyber dystopia, and we've just gotta laugh through it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.